Well, speaking of leaving a little light on, I mean, there's a little bit of hope left in this trade issue with China. I don't know if you saw that last week, Pat George, but it pretty far and wide, China declared a people's war on the U.S. A people's war. I mean, did you catch that?
Yes, this is very scary stuff.
No, it's not scary.
Oh,
no. It's not scary at all. It's not scary at all. Look, they've been working on this for a couple of years. They've been meeting and talking about this trade deal for about 2 full years, and I've got the full timeline here. There's been a lot of back and forth. You know, back when it got started, it was slow moving, but they made a lot of progress here more recently, particularly since about, I'd say, when they declared a truce back in December, beginning of December of last year, December 2018, they declared, if you remember, the 90-day truce to try to keep working things out so that the tariffs would not increase. And remember, the folks negotiating this were all these Trump administration folks like Wilbur Ross and Steve Mnuchin and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer. And on the Chinese side, we didn't know all of their names, but one of them's names that we knew was Liu He. And he was the special envoy to Chairman Xi Jinping. We're going to tell you about what's happened to him when we come back.
And we're back on the Morgan Streetman Show. You know, it's funny because Pat George and I sort of had the same sentiment about the trade war with China. Whether it's a trade war, a people's war, whatever it is, makes me nervous. But Morgan's here to tell us that, you know what? Relax. Let's talk about this timeline and maybe things will start to make a little more sense.
Price of clothes is definitely going to go up because everything seems like where it comes from China.
Okay, listen, y'all. There cannot be a people's war on the United States by China.
What if they call the dead in?
They can't do it, Pat George. We're their customer. It'd be like McDonald's declaring war on you. It's never going to happen, right? Because you are part of the reason that McDonald's exists, because you go to McDonald's as a customer and you buy their stuff, right?
Well, I'm starting to understand that when you dumb it down like that. Yes,
yeah.
Okay.
So what does this indicate? I mean, remember, follow the timeline. I mean, first of all, they've been negotiating for about 2 years. Remember, Trump's been over there to China. We had a state visit. You know, we've had Chairman Xi come over to Mar-a-Lago. Remember, back in April of 2017, and was having dinner when we were blowing up different places in Syria, and that was. You know, the president was like, oh, by the way, you know, before the dinner course, I just want to let you know we've been sending missiles into Syria. You know, it's kind of a show of force. They said it's kind of dramatic. But, you know, we fast forward a little bit. There have been a lot of tariffs that have been put onto things over the last year or so. But we fast forward to the end of the year last year, you know, and we've got the parties basically declaring a truce. And then we've got a bunch of meetings. I mean, we've got a January 7th to 9th meeting in Beijing where apparently they worked out the framework for a deal. We've then got a January 30th and 31st meeting in D.C. If you remember that, it made the news and everything else with Liu He. And that's apparently the way that you say what I would say is Liu He, but it's Liu He. It's the correct pronunciation. I did try to look that up ahead of time. I hope I'm saying it, you know, exactly right, Liu He. And then in February 11th to the 15th, they had a lengthy meeting in Beijing. February 21st to the 24th, more meetings in Washington. Now, we fast forward a little bit to early April, and remember the deal fell apart. The whole deal fell apart. And the issue was that the Chinese, we had worked out a deal in writing. It hadn't been signed, but it had been approved. And remember, Liu He is the special envoy of Chairman Xi Jinping, which means that he speaks for Chairman Xi, right? He speaks as the envoy. When he speaks, Chairman Xi is speaking. But apparently, when he went back to China and they took another look at it, now I don't believe for a second that they didn't know exactly what they'd already agreed to. There's no mistake here, but they tried to reword everything, and they tried to reword it all to their favor. And remember, some of the key issues here are intellectual property theft and forced technology transfers that the Chinese companies require for you to be able to go and do business in China or use their factories. You have to go ahead and give them your technology. And that's how they've advanced themselves a lot. So they basically get the written deal. They don't want to agree to it. They reword everything, and they come back to the table and present it to President Trump in Washington. So, okay, well, this is what we'll sign. Well, if you remember, it was like, nope, deal's off, and we're going to increase the tariffs, and things are marching full speed ahead. Well, then they've had a couple of meetings since then that have been somewhat informal. And by meetings, these didn't all occur in person. I mean, some of them have been by telephone, but The biggest thing is now the Chinese are essentially saying no deal and we want to have a people's war against you. This tells me that Trump has outmaneuvered them, very seriously outmaneuvered them, because they are now frustrated and they have switched from a pattern of negotiation to a pattern of open hostility.
Why did Trump delay the tariffs?
I think it's all part of his negotiation, because I think Trump basically has them perfectly set up. I mean, the Chinese economy needs the American economy much more than the American economy needs the Chinese economy. Now, people don't believe that. They say, well, all of our stuff's made in China. Those are just factories, though. That can be made anywhere. We are the consumers. We are the purchasers. We are what the factories need to have a reason to exist. These could be factories in Vietnam. They could be other places, and that's exactly what's being talked about right now. They don't have to be in China.
It's interesting. I was listening to an interview with Trump this morning, and he was talking about this is what happened. We went and sat down with him. What we'd agreed to was not what was laid out in the deal. So we walked away and said, no, we're going to raise the tariffs. And it was so interesting to hear him say that, because even studying in school and in business, that's sort of the culture of the Chinese. And even when I was in Hong Kong, they talked about it too. They say, yeah, we're going to do this. This is what we'll do. Then you go to sign the paper. It says something totally different.
Yeah, yeah. And that's considered more acceptable in some of those cultures as a way to do business. Of course, the more Western Anglo-English mindset is very much about trust and credibility. And so if you say you're going to do something, we want to see you do it. If you don't do it, then we have trouble investing any trust in you in the future, and it makes it hard to do business. So, I mean, Western business is highly based on trust, and these kind of last-minute shenanigans are viewed with great disfavor, although in some cases I think they're becoming more common as we, graduate from being, a great country to maybe what was a once great country. I hate to say it in terms of our culture. I think people are more willing today to do things for money that they weren't willing to do 50 years ago. They had more dignity. They had more class. Now people will do anything for money and recognition and fame. Anything. They'll say anything. No shame. They don't care. It's very, very sad, because money and recognition of others has been put at the top of our cultural pyramid, as opposed to other values.
It's money over morals.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I was going to say, morals, but, we'll just say other values, values other than money. So I think everything's going exactly as planned on this trade war. I mean, right now we have in place about $250 billion of tariffs against Chinese goods. About tariffs on about $250 billion of Chinese goods. Chinese have about $110 billion on us. So we've got much more tariffs on them. They need us. Chinese does not have a consumption-based economy. China doesn't, like we do. We are the consumers, other than maybe Europe, but we're one of the largest consuming economies in the whole world. So countries that produce things need us as their customer. The thing is, like I said earlier, and this you should take this to heart, we don't have to have China. Yeah, right now we can get stuff made cheaper there, but you know what? There are factories in Vietnam. There are factories in Japan. There are factories in Korea. There are even factories in the good old U.S. of A. that can make stuff.
There's a lot going in Africa with China.
So anyway, I think we're right where we need to be. I think we've negotiated this to a point of maximum frustration for the Chinese, which is perfect, because they were never going to go along willingly. They were never going to say, you know what? Okay, you guys caught us. We've been manipulating our currency. We've been stealing your technology for years, and now we're just going to stop. We're just going to stop, and we got away with it, and we'll just call it even and move forward. They were never going to do that. They were always going to fight this and try to undermine what President Trump's trying to do here. But their public displays of frustration after so many years of being so icily cool about everything, I think tell you just exactly what you need to know about who's winning. We are.
Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.